Elisabeth Whiteman has had the most incredible life transformation experience. In 2017, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, very serious brain tumor. That massively challenged her health. Her health was very badly deteriorating, and she had been working as a life coach and working in different healing modalities for years. And then she really specialized in some areas to help with her healing journey. She worked and specialized in brain health coaching, in positive neuroplasticity, and really got into neuroscience and studied neuroscience and all of the incredible steps and changes that we're making in neuroscience. She really immersed herself in that and applied some of these techniques and tools that she used in combination with the beautiful aura soma work that she'd already done. And she's come up with this incredible healing process, which is all about living by our codes. And living by our codes is about developing resiliency. It educates you and empowers you, helps you to explore and discover your inner mastery. And she teaches 7 main keys, 7 main areas that she explores to really help you to powerfully connect with your inner master and get a sense of the power that you have within yourself. And when we've connected with that powerful self, it's incredible how we can heal. Elisabeth's healing journey is one of unbelievable healing results, one of incredible recovery. And I'm absolutely delighted to have her on tonight, sharing her story. Elisabeth, welcome to the Wednesday Wellbeing Show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Amanda. It's a real honour to be here.
Oh, Elisabeth, welcome and thank you so much for coming on. But tell us a little bit about your journey. I mean, a journey that you described as rising from the ashes. I love that. Rising from the ashes, from deteriorating health into a new life of resolution. Wow, what a declaration to make. And just looking at you and how gorgeous you look and how healthy you look, this is really a statement of fact, a statement of truth. You really have risen from the ashes of deteriorating health into a new life. And wow, look at you, you're glowing, absolutely amazing. Tell us a little bit about that journey that you have been on, that health improving journey. Where were you when all of this kind of started?
Well, I was in New Zealand and I was just, living in a way to preserve my health, as I'd had other poor health, as you already know, in the past, Amanda. And all of a sudden, it was like I was exercising, I was eating really well, I was doing inner work, and then all of a sudden I started putting on weight and I couldn't deal with stress, and I just felt like a bit of a court case anyway, and I had this pressure behind my eye. And my partner one night said to me, "Look at your eye, it's really swollen." And so then I took myself to a beautician that specialised in the area of concern, and she just happened to be the daughter of a retired eye specialist who saw my photos, sent me to an eye specialist, and I went for a CT scan. And I was given the grim news that I had some sort of mass in a very complicated place. However, it's okay because there's lots that can be done. Then I went on to a neurosurgeon who did the first surgery April the 11th, 2017, about 3 weeks after diagnosis. And then if we fast forward 13 months after that, I had a second surgery because the first surgery was not as successful as they'd planned. And the second surgery was needed to make sure that I didn't lose my eye, because what had happened is the tumor was in a place where it would freeze my eye and then I'd lose it. And it currently is still there. There's about 2 centimeters, and it is wrapped around the optic nerve and embedded in the back of my eye. And then, unfortunately, it's the kind of tumor that has a little tail and starts wandering in places.
So this tumor that you had, this mass that you had, it was behind your eye, and which parts of the brain were being impacted by it?
Well, I'm not quite sure if you and your audience know where the sphenoid bone is, but it's like this beautiful butterfly inside our skull, and it protects different parts of the brain. And so it was behind my eye, and it was attached to the sphenoid bone, a tiny bit in the cavernous sinus, and going into the part of the brain up here where we have the wise man or woman in
Yeah.
the watchtower, that gives us the ability to regulate and respond calmly to whatever the amygdala is picking up on, whether there's a threat or not. So in my situation, when I was picking up on stress and not being able to cope with it and things like that, it was all the inflammation happening.
There's the
So
part of the brain that is involved with responding to the world, to life, and it kind of like works out how to respond in the best way. So if your amygdala is sending like fear messages, this part, the front part of your brain, will be able to kind of go, is it really scary, or am I just having a strange response? And it kind of manages how you're going to respond. So that bit was all kind of swollen and not working, so that was obviously having an impact on how you were responding to your environment, and you were feeling more of an impact of stress and fears and anxiety. Is that right?
yeah, but that was sort of after the surgery, because when I woke up from the second surgery, I didn't come back to this reality for 4 days. I was actually telling them I was in 1918, and I just remember becoming conscious of where I was and hassling them like, what am I doing here in this bed? And I was sitting there, and why I said that is because in the distance I could hear these elderly people not knowing where they were, who they were, how they got where they had got. And I thought, what am I doing in this room? And so I very quickly came to the realization that obviously I'd been, coming across as a person that had no idea who they were or where they were. And I quickly got it together and got out of hospital, and I was doing really, really well. I had such a bad eye misalignment, I couldn't see properly. So the rehabilitation team would come and do home visits, and I'd learn how to balance again and move again. And then I was doing so well. And then 12 weeks after, I had a seizure, a blackout, and what now is a suspected brain injury. And I was like catapulted into this dark pit where the person I am today was split with a traumatized, like, lost child. So I'd be, going through my day and everything would be stable, and then something would trigger it, and I couldn't talk without crying. I couldn't talk without anxiety. And I was just a mess, basically. And I spent 6 to 8 hours a week attending rehabilitation. It was such an unusual response to how well I was doing. And it's still in the process of being understood and correctly diagnosed. So that went on intensely, and that's what I mean about rising from the ashes, because what I experienced is something beyond anything I'd ever experienced, and it was this sense of at oneness within such a dark, dismal pit, because nobody could be there with me. So I surrendered, and I said to myself, I know that my life has more purpose than this sense of you know, craziness I was experiencing. And each day I believed that my life had more purpose. And I began to create a visualization through a beautiful green emerald that began with the light at the end of the tunnel, because the only way I can describe it is it was like in a meditative state of not being here on the 3D, you know, not being here on earth in the sense, because I couldn't connect with external people as I used to. And in rehab, I would have hallucinations and all sorts of things. And, you know, at one stage, they were concerned that I may have early dementia.
Wow.
Yeah. It was scary. It was really scary. And I just sort of hung on to the threads of wellness coaching and my Urosoma history and history of years and years of working on myself and experiences in life, some of which I shared with the beautiful Amanda here. And you have to, you know, tune into all these cues. And so generally how I used to function before, I couldn't function like that. And I lost any sort of connection to what I was or what I had before. When I was 11 years old, a brick fell on my head when I was in the playground having fun in the country, and then that's where the tumor grew.
Right.
So as I experienced, you know, in those months, and the most difficult thing was the inability to sort of reach out and be able to explain to people what was happening because there were no words. So my real downtime was at the rehabilitation, where they were like, it doesn't matter how you are, you know, or what you've seen, it's okay, you can just be yourself here. So I didn't feel like I was being, you know, a burden to them. However, at home and around people I knew, I still put on that mask of happiness.
Yeah.
I still managed to hide a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine, you know, you that whole feeling of being a burden and feeling like you need to have extra support, because I know what an independent, fiery woman you are, and I, when I worked with you, I know you had a great passion about, you know, empowering others. So to be in a very disempowered place and have to ask for help must have been a really difficult, challenging aspect of your life at the time.
I was trying to say to myself, you're okay, you're stable enough, you know, you're doing really well. And because I'd been to a neuropsychologist that had generally reflected back that my whole brain processing ability had slowed down and that there were definite changes. And the big thing that I'm still, you know, experiencing today is a lack of sequencing, which is a really weird experience. I went to a local market and I was going to meet my son after work because I was like, come on, Liz, you can do this. You've come such a long way. You're doing so well. And I went there and all of a sudden it was like I was frozen in fear. I have no idea how all this happened. And the 2-year-old jumped in, and all of a sudden I was standing there like a lost child at a market, just crying and crying and crying. And I said to myself, just walk out of here, find a way out, which I did. And I rang my son, rang my partner. How am I going to do anything? This is just unbelievable. This is just like, you know, because you just don't know when something's going to happen. And so I started totally accessing my own inner expertise and creating my own process of recovery. I just became so empowered, and I said to myself, this is my brain, my life, and my reality, and I'm going to be empowered.